Alright guys, thank you for tuning in again. This is Michael from Tech Diffuse, and today I want to show you how you can handle control flows in Python. So control flows in Python are actually very easy. The idea behind this is you have one condition, maybe a value from a variable, and depending on that condition you want your program to do whether one thing or another thing. This is pretty much everything in a box you need to know about control flow and conditions. And we will look at these concepts, we will learn what if and else is, what else if is, and we learn how you can nest them together to get exactly the result from your program that you want to have. Alright, let's see how it works. Okay guys, so let's start on conditions. My idea is to present an example where we have a number, just a simple integer, and whether the value of the number, we either print one statement or we print another statement. Okay, let's go. So for instance, we just have the number like number 3. Pretty simple. So we print the num and number 3. Nothing interesting happened here so far. So, and now we want to have a condition, as I said. Depending on the value of the number, we want to print either one sentence or print another sentence. So, for instance, we want to print the sentence, this is a positive number. Okay, so if I launch this now, the message gets always printed, and this is to be expected. It's in the flow of the program, so this has to be printed all the time. No surprise here. Okay, so, but the goal is I only want to print this message if the number is really a positive number. Okay, so what means positive? Positive is, in this case, easy. It just means bigger than 0. Okay, so we want our number bigger, this is the bigger sign, than 0. This is pretty much it in a box. And we cannot let this stand like this alone. We have to make it wrap it in a condition. And in this case, our condition is just the if. So if the number 3 is bigger than is bigger than 0, I want colon. We make this some spaces, and if this number is bigger than 0, this is a positive number. Okay, so let's execute, and this is a positive number. That worked very well. Yeah, pretty much this is all about it. So there you have a nice little control flow. If this number is positive, it gets printed. And we check again. For instance, if we have put the 0 here, there you see, nothing is printed, and this is totally correct. So our number is 0, num the question is num bigger than 0? And the answer is no, num is not bigger than 0. So this expression is evaluated to false. And you can read it like if false, yeah, nothing happens. So if false, don't bother. If I change it again to 1 and execute it, we have written here, this is a positive number. And you can read this expression here like if number is bigger than 0, yes, so num 1 bigger than 0 if true, and yeah, if it's true, then do this. If it's false, do nothing. This is pretty much everything in a box about an if statement. Okay, so this example alone is a bit boring. Of course, you want to have some mechanism to handle the opposite way. So if the first condition is not true, then you want to do something. So you want to do the negative, the else way. And yeah, I already said it, it's the keyword else. So let's put it in, else. Also a colon, and we can make a print statement here as well. So if num bigger than 0, this is a positive number, else this is a negative number, or the number is 0, because at that point we don't have a capability to check if it's really a negative number. We can only say it is not a positive number. Let's try this. We have currently set number to 1. This is a positive number, everything correct. So we set it to 0, we execute it, and there you go. This is a negative number, or the number is 0. Perfect. So what has happened here? Again, pretty easy. We check if the number here is bigger than 0. The number actually is 0, so this expression is evaluated to false. So we read if false. If false, don't do this, ignore this, but do everything else. And this is exactly what happens here. So if false, don't do this, but do the else tree, the else branch. And yeah, this is exactly what happened. We printed out this sentence. This is a negative number, or the number is 0. And as expected, this also works with negative numbers. So this is a negative number, or the number is 0, because the expression here is still evaluated to false. Because number is -1. Is -1 bigger than 0? No, it is not. Then if false, don't bother here and print the other statement. So this is pretty much everything you need to know about if and else. If evaluation is true, print the part that is under if. If the evaluation is false, do not something that is an if, but if there is an else statement, like here, do the else way. That's it. Okay, so this example is hopefully clear, but we want to have a way to handle the 0 now. Okay, so what possibility do we have? Well, if the number is 0, this is also another condition. And another condition is something like, we write again, if num is 0. Remember, if we want to check if something has a value, we use the double equal sign, not the single equal sign. Single equal sign is just for putting a value to a variable. In this case, double equal sign. Okay, so if a number is 0, print the number is 0. Okay, so this if statement is of course completely unrelated to this if-else branch here. So if I execute it now, nothing would happen because the number is still -1. If we change it to 0, we execute it, and this is what happens. First, we have printed out this is a negative number, or the number is 0. This is the evaluation of the first expression. So if number is bigger than 0, this is evaluated to false. We don't print this out, but we print everything else, this here. And the second statement, if number is 0, and this is the case, we print the number is 0. All right, so what we want to do now, we want to connect these two together. Okay, so the first thought maybe, well, why don't we take this and put it here? So something like this. This could work, but it's actually not that what we wanted. What we, if we execute it, we have now only the number is 0. But actually, what we want this to be a complete statement, one statement. And what we actually have now is we have two statements. We have this if statement and we have this if-else statement. So, but to make this the three statements one statement, we have to make the else-if case. So we have if a condition is true and if this condition is false. Okay, usually we made else, but in this case we want to test another. We say, well, okay, if this is false, maybe it is this here. Else if the number is something else. And in Python, we don't say else if. The designers of Python decided just to make it Elif. So else if, you see everything red, there's some syntax error. So else if in Python is just Elif. And there you go. Now we have our if, we have our Elif, and we have our else. So this reads like this. If number is bigger than 0, in this case it's false. Okay, so then let's check if the number is 0. In this case it is true. We print out this, and this else here doesn't get evaluated because we are not interested in it anymore. So the compiler internally ignores this here because we have a valid expression and we don't need to evaluate this anymore. This is like a compiler optimization. This is pretty much everything about it. So again, let it run. The number is 0. If you make it positive, it's the same thing. This is a positive number. If number is bigger than 0, this is the case. Print this is a positive number, and everything else behind that isn't even evaluated. So the compiler doesn't care because we have a valid expression done. And the only way everything is really checked is, in this case, if the value is negative. So for instance, the number is -1. Let's check it. This is a negative number. Oh, I have to adapt the phrase here. All right, the order number is 0 is not valid anymore. Okay, again, this is a negative number. So what happens here? The number is 1. We check. Number bigger than 0, false. This is not the case. Okay, so test the next one. If number is 0, else if number is 0, it's also false. So we don't print this either. And in this case, we make the else. So we had two checks, two specific checks that we want to check, two conditions we wrote ourselves, and both conditions were not true. So there's nothing much to do than to print out the else. This is pretty much control flow with if and else statements in Python in a box. And of course, if you want to, you can mess around with this a bit. What I mean by that, with mess around, you can nest if and else statements one in another. Okay, let's see how it looks. So for instance, we don't say if number is bigger than 0, we just say we have the number is bigger or equals 0. So we come here. Let's copy this. Number is bigger equals 0. And we put a 0 here. Number bigger equals 0. Because this means if the number, as it says, is either bigger or it's 0. Like a test for two cases in one. Either bigger or either 0. So we can make the check with 1. And it's also true. Number is bigger than 0. So, but in this case, we also don't exactly know, is the number 0 or is it bigger than 0? So if you really want to know, is it a positive number or just 0, we can again make an if-else statement inside here. And it's like the same as before. So we have if num is 0, print number is 0, and else print number is positive. Okay, so let's check what happens. And we have number 1. We have printed the first statement. So at this point in the evaluation, we only know that the number is either 0 or it's bigger than 0. And at this point in the evaluation, we definitely know the number is bigger than 0, so it's positive. Because we made another check inside this if. So this is nested if in a box. Pretty much everything you need to know. You have to take care if you use this, because it can be hard to read. It can look ugly, and you know, without proper documentation, it can really hard to grasp what the programmer wanted to write there. So a typical case, if you go to the project that is already, you know, finished, or you come as a newbie and you have to make some more features, and you see code like this, typically nested ifs are typically, at least for me, they're more hard to read than if you have a clean if-else flow. Maybe this is my kind of style, but yeah, just take care. It can be ugly, and it's kind of like maybe you heard the term spaghetti code. And if you do too much of this, you have this kind of spaghetti code, and usually you want to prevent this. So I just wanted to show you that it's possible to do this kind of stuff, but it's better to prevent this. So okay, this was control flow with Python in a box. So what have we learned today? We learned what is a condition, how conditions are evaluated, how you can control your flow with if statements, how you can control flow with if and else statements, how you can use else if statements to even further control the flow of the program, and how you can use nested statements to control the flow in a different way than with else if. So this is control flow management in Python in a box. Okay, so I think we're at the end of the video. I hope you liked it. If so, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, be sure to visit my website techdifuse.com. I have it in the box below, and yeah, see you in the next one.